The colony was a place where survival meant adaptation. The air buzzed with a mix of human ingenuity and alien industriousness. Yet, every transaction felt like a negotiation of life and death. At a repair shop nestled between alien market stalls, Kay Vale adjusted a malfunctioning drilling drone, her movements precise and deliberate. She handed it back to Drek, a wiry young alien with scales that glimmered faintly in the sunlight. "Next time, don't flood the motor with coolant," she said gruffly. Her tone was brisk, but Drek caught the faint undertone of mentorship. Before Drek could respond, the ground trembled. A low rumble built into a crescendo as massive shadows blotted out the sun. The Vortic ships descended, their blackened hulls bristling with weaponry. The colony stilled, silence replacing the hum of life. Then came the sound, a guttural, rasping cacophony that sent shivers through the air. It was laughter, alien and mocking. The Vortic commander, Hal, spoke through the colony's communication network. "You will surrender all resources, or you will burn. Let our laughter remind you, resistance is futile." The laughter grew louder, echoing like a sinister drumbeat. Kay's jaw tightened. Around her, fear rippled through the colonists. Some darted into hiding, others froze in place, paralyzed. The fragile harmony of the colony shattered under the weight of Hal's words. Vale moved swiftly to the communal hall where the colony's leaders had gathered. The council was a mix of species, their desperation palpable as they debated compliance. One elder, a thin, trembling alien with translucent skin, spoke up. "We can't fight them. They'll destroy us all. And giving them everything will do what? Make them leave us alone?" Kay's voice cut through the room. Her presence demanded attention, her military bearing still evident despite the years away from combat. "We don't have the weapons," another council member argued. "We don't have the numbers." "We have more than you think," Vale retorted. "We have people who want to live. And we have the will to fight." The council hesitated, their gazes darting between one another. They weren't warriors, they were miners, traders, and refugees. Kay sighed, frustration clear. "If you're too scared to act, fine. But don't get in the way of those who aren't." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. The first wave of Vortic soldiers breached the colony's perimeter. Sleek and armored, they moved with precision, their laughter a grotesque backdrop to their violence. Chaos erupted as the colonists scrambled to defend themselves with crude tools and outdated energy rifles. Kay grabbed an old plasma pistol from a storage locker and sprinted to the outskirts. The scene was grim. The Vortic overwhelmed the makeshift defenses with ease. A farmer wielding a modified mining drill fell under a barrage of plasma fire. Others retreated in terror, leaving equipment and supplies behind. Kay ducked behind a cargo crate, firing controlled shots at the advancing soldiers. Each hit was met with more laughter, as if her defiance amused them. She gritted her teeth, her frustration mounting. The plasma pistol's low hum warned her it was overheating. She threw it aside and grabbed a wrench, charging at a soldier who had cornered Drek. The soldier's laughter turned to confusion as the human slammed the wrench into its helmet, cracking the visor. It fell back, stunned. Kay grabbed Drek by the arm and dragged him to safety. "Stay low!" she barked. The battle ended as quickly as it began. The Vortic withdrew, their laughter still ringing in the air. The colony lay in ruins, and morale was at an all-time low. Injured colonists gathered in the communal hall, their faces etched with fear and despair. Kay stood among them, bloodied but unbowed. She addressed the crowd, her voice firm. "This was just the first wave. They're testing us, seeing how much they can take before we break." Her gaze swept over the room, meeting each pair of eyes. "But we're not broken. Not yet. If we stand together, if we fight back, we can make them regret ever coming here." There was silence, broken only by the occasional whimper. Then, slowly, a murmur of agreement spread. Drek stepped forward, his voice trembling but resolute. "I'll help. Whatever it takes." Kay nodded, determination hardening her features. "Then let's get to work." In the aftermath of the attack, the colony's defenses were in tatters, and fear loomed over the survivors like a suffocating fog. Vale moved swiftly, rallying those who were willing to act. Supplies were low, morale even lower, but there was no time to dwell on despair. The Vortic would return, and when they did, the colony needed more than crude tools and desperation. In a dimly lit storage depot, Vale sifted through a collection of abandoned crates, searching for anything that could give them an edge. Drek followed, his eyes darting nervously to the shadows as if expecting another attack. "What are we looking for?" he asked, his voice tight with unease. "Anything we can use to fight back," Vale replied, prying open a rusted crate with a crowbar. Inside, there were only scraps of outdated mining equipment. She muttered a curse and moved to the next crate. As the hours stretched on, their search seemed fruitless. Then, in a corner obscured by decades of dust, Vale's gaze landed on a crate marked with faded Earth military insignias. Her heart skipped a beat. She wiped away the grime to reveal the stenciled words, "Property of United Terran Defense Corps." With Drek's help, she pried it open. The contents took her breath away. Nestled inside was a Vulcan minigun, its barrels gleaming with an almost malevolent beauty. Alongside it were several belts of ammunition. It was an artifact of humanity's violent past, a relic of wars long since forgotten, but it was also a weapon of unparalleled destructive power. Drek stared at it, his scales dimming in fear. What is that?" Vale ran her fingers over the cold metal, her expression grim. "This," she said quietly, "is how we fight back." Back at the communal hall, Vale assembled a small group of colonists. They were a motley crew, miners, traders, and a handful of mechanics who knew their way around machinery. She laid the minigun on a table, its presence commanding immediate attention. Murmurs spread through the group, a mix of awe and apprehension. "This is a Vulcan minigun," Vale began, her tone leaving no room for argument. "It fires 3,000 rounds per minute. It doesn't rely on energy cells or plasma, it's raw, mechanical power. And it's going to give us a chance." A murmur of unease rippled through the group. One colonist, a middle-aged man with a prosthetic arm, stepped forward. "You think that's enough? They've got ships. They've got numbers." Vale's gaze hardened. "It's not just about the weapon. It's about sending a message. The Vortic thrive on fear, on breaking their enemies before the fight even begins. This," she gestured to the minigun, "will make them think twice. It's loud, it's relentless, and it's going to show them we're not as easy to crush as they think." The group fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Then Drek spoke up, his voice shaky but determined. "What do we do?" Vale wasted no time. She assigned tasks with military precision. Some worked on fortifying the colony's defenses, repurposing mining equipment into makeshift barricades. Others focused on scavenging more supplies. Vale took it upon herself to teach Drek and a few others how to operate the minigun. The weapon's roar in the training sessions was deafening, and its power was unlike anything the colonists had ever seen. Drek struggled at first, the sheer weight of the weapon testing his resolve, but Vale's steady guidance kept him focused. "Control it," she instructed. "Don't let it control you." Meanwhile, the Vortic's presence grew more oppressive. Their laughter echoed through the colony's comm systems at random intervals, a psychological tactic designed to wear them down. Each time it sounded, the colonists flinched, except for Vale. She turned the volume off each time it began, her expression unwavering. In one tense moment, a scouting party encountered a small Vortic patrol. The colonists managed to fend them off with a combination of jury-rigged traps and focused attacks, but the encounter was a stark reminder of the odds they faced. The Vortic were relentless, and their advanced technology gave them a significant advantage. Vale knew they couldn't outlast the invaders. They needed to strike a decisive blow to make the Vortic reconsider their campaign. As she stared at the minigun, a plan began to form, a bold, dangerous plan that would put everything on the line. That night, as the colony settled into an uneasy quiet, Vale stood watch over the minigun. Drek approached, his usual nervousness replaced by a hesitant curiosity. "Do you think it'll work?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Vale didn't answer immediately. She ran a hand over the weapon, her mind racing with possibilities and regrets. I don't know, she admitted. But I know we don't have a choice. Drek nodded, his gaze lingering on the minigun. It's strange. Something so small, compared to their ships, it feels like it shouldn't matter. Vale smiled faintly, a rare moment of softness breaking through her hardened demeanor. That's the thing about humans, she said. We've always found a way to matter. The Vortic did not waste time. Their final assault began with a precision that spoke of their confidence, their laughter booming through every communication channel and echoing across the colony. The colonists braced themselves behind hastily constructed barricades, their makeshift defenses barely holding back the tide of heavily armed alien soldiers. The air was thick with the acrid smell of plasma discharges, and panic rippled through the colony like an unchecked wildfire. Kay Vale stood at the heart of the chaos, her focus unyielding. The minigun was mounted on a reinforced turret, its ammunition belts coiled like sleeping serpents ready to strike. Around her, the colonists scrambled to hold their positions, their fear palpable but their resolve unbroken. The first wave of Vortic soldiers surged forward, their laughter blending with the sound of their weapons. They moved like a tide, overwhelming the outer defenses in minutes. The colonists fought back with everything they had, plasma pistols, mining drills, even sharpened tools, but it was clear they were outmatched. Vale's voice cut through the chaos, barking orders and rallying those on the verge of retreat. Hold the line! She shouted, her voice carrying over the din of battle. We don't give them an inch! As the Vortic advanced, Vale activated the minigun. The roar of the weapon drowned out everything else, its relentless thunder shaking the ground. The first barrage tore through the enemy ranks, shredding armor and silencing their grotesque laughter. The effect was immediate and profound. Those Vortic who survived the initial assault hesitated, their confidence faltering for the first time. The colonists seized the opportunity, pressing their counterattack with renewed vigor. Inspired by the sheer power of the minigun, they pushed back against the invaders, their shouts of defiance rising above the chaos. Drek, armed with a plasma rifle, fought alongside Vale, his fear overshadowed by determination. But the Vortic were not so easily deterred. Their commander, Hal, appeared on the battlefield, his imposing figure cutting through the carnage. His laughter was louder than ever, a chilling reminder of the danger they faced. You think one relic can stop us? He taunted. We are infinite. You are finite. Vale didn't respond with words. Instead, she unleashed another barrage from the minigun, forcing Hal to retreat momentarily. The weapon's relentless firepower was both a shield and a sword, buying the colonists precious time. Still, the tide of battle remained precarious. The minigun's ammunition began to dwindle, and the strain of constant fire took its toll on the weapon. Vale could feel the vibrations through the turret, each shot a reminder of the weapon's raw, destructive power. She knew they were running out of time. Amid the chaos, Drek spotted a group of colonists pinned down by enemy fire. Without hesitation, he darted across the battlefield, his plasma rifle blazing. Vale saw him go and felt a surge of both pride and fear. Drek, stay with the group! She called out, but her voice was lost in the cacophony. Drek reached the trapped colonists, providing cover as they retreated to safer ground. His bravery inspired those around him, and soon others joined the effort, creating a chain of resistance that turned the tide in key areas of the battlefield. But the cost was steep. As Drek returned to Vale's position, a stray plasma shot grazed his side, sending him tumbling to the ground. Vale abandoned the turret momentarily, dragging him to cover. You're reckless, she growled, her tone betraying her concern. Drek winced but managed a weak smile. Learn from the best. The battle raged on, the Vortic showing no signs of relenting. Vale knew they needed to take out Hal to end the assault. She adjusted the minigun, aiming for the commander, who stood at the center of his troops, orchestrating the attack. This is for every life you've taken, she muttered under her breath, and then she fired. The minigun's final barrage was a deafening symphony of destruction, cutting through Hal's defenses and striking him directly. His laughter ceased, replaced by a guttural roar of pain and rage. With their commander down, the Vortic forces faltered. Confusion spread through their ranks as the colonists pressed their advantage. What had started as a desperate last stand transformed into a decisive rout. The Vortic retreated, their once mocking laughter replaced by silence. As the dust settled, the battlefield was a grim testament to the price of survival. The colony had held, but the cost was evident in the faces of those who remained. Vale stood by the minigun, its barrels smoking and its ammunition depleted. She stared out at the retreating enemy, her expression a mix of exhaustion and grim satisfaction. "We laugh last," she said softly, her words carrying the weight of their hard-fought victory. The aftermath was a strange mix of silence and activity. The battlefield was still, littered with the remnants of the Vortic forces, their once mocking laughter now a distant memory. The colonists moved among the ruins of their defenses, tending to the wounded and salvaging what little they could. The victory was theirs, but it had come at a steep cost. Every face bore the weight of loss, every step a reminder of the lives that had been risked and lost. Kay Vale sat near the minigun, her hands resting on its now cool metal. The weapon had done its job, silencing the invaders and giving the colony a chance to rebuild. Yet, as she stared at the smoldering remnants of the battlefield, she felt no triumph. There was no victory in survival, only the grim satisfaction of having endured. Drek limped over, a bandage wrapped tightly around his injured side. He stood silently for a moment before speaking. "They're gone. We did it." Vale looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "For now," she replied. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, a wariness that refused to be shaken. "They'll be back. Maybe not them, but someone else. There's always someone else." Drek nodded, his youthful optimism tempered by the reality of what they'd faced. "Then we'll fight again. Like you said, we find a way." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Vale stood, brushing off the dust from her uniform. "We fought because we had to. But this," she gestured to the minigun, "this isn't who we should be. If we rely on this, we'll end up just like them." Drek frowned. "But it saved us." Vale sighed, her gaze distant. "It did. But weapons like this, they take more than they give. We need to be better than that." The following days were a blur of activity, as the colony began the arduous process of rebuilding. The minigun, once the centerpiece of their desperate defense, was dismantled under Vale's supervision. Piece by piece, it was taken apart, its components repurposed for more constructive uses. For many, it was a bittersweet moment, a reminder of both their survival and the cost of their resistance. Drek watched as the weapon was reduced to scraps, his expression conflicted. "Feels wrong to just get rid of it," he admitted. Vale placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's not about getting rid of it. It's about moving forward. We fought to protect this colony, to protect each other. That's what matters." As the days turned to weeks, the colony transformed. The shared experience of the battle brought the disparate species closer together, their bonds strengthened by the struggle they had endured. Walls were rebuilt, homes repaired, and new defenses designed, not weapons of destruction, but systems of deterrence and cooperation. The colony became a beacon of unity, its reputation spreading across the frontier. Vale, however, remained a figure apart. She worked tirelessly, helping where she could, but always with a certain distance. The scars of the battle, both physical and emotional, ran deep. She spent her evenings walking the perimeter, her gaze fixed on the horizon, ever watchful for the next threat. One evening, as the sun dipped below the alien landscape, Drek found her by the edge of the colony. He carried a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Thought you might want to see this," he said, holding it out. Vale unwrapped the bundle to reveal a small piece of the minigun's barrel, polished and engraved with the words, "We laugh last." She stared at it for a long moment, her fingers tracing the words. "It's not a weapon anymore," Drek said. "It's a reminder." Vale nodded, her expression softening. "A reminder of what we can do, and what we should never have to do again." The colony continued to grow, its people united not by fear, but by hope. New alliances were formed, trade routes established, and the lessons of their survival shared with other settlements. The Vordik's defeat became a story told across the frontier, a testament to humanity's resilience and the strength of those who stood together against impossible odds. As time passed, Vale's role in the colony shifted. She became a mentor to Drek and others, teaching not just the skills of survival, but the values of cooperation and innovation. Her gruff exterior remained, but beneath it was a steadfast commitment to ensuring the colony thrived without resorting to the violence that had nearly consumed them. One evening, as the sounds of children's laughter echoed through the colony, a sound of pure joy, not fear, Vale allowed herself a small smile. It was a sound worth fighting for, and one she would do everything to protect.